Hello, and welcome to the latest HR on the Offensive live stream. It's me, Chris Howard from Blaze Partners, joined by, it's a trio today. So I've got three people in three different locations, myself at home. We've got Chris Horton in his home. How you doing, Chris? You all right?
I'm really good, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. And I've got Cathy Acrotopoulos in the office. How you doing, Cathy? You good?
I'm good, thank you, Chris. Is this the last live stream of the year, our festive themed one?
This is the last live stream of the year. And so what we thought we would do, you've kind of given a bit of a hint there. That's all right. That's all right. You've given us our topic. We've already talked about this beforehand, but of course, I'm going to start with you, Cathy, because we've been reading, and I think a few people have been reading the press, both national, business, but also the HR press. There's been lots of talk around the death of the office Christmas party. You know, is it going to be the case that we're going to slowly see this eradication of the annualized event, an opportunity for people to get together and have one last celebration before everyone disappears off for the festive season? So what I wanted to do is pose to you, and then I'll ask Chris for his perspective as well, this idea that, right, well, that's it. You know, people don't want to do Christmas parties anymore. It is of no interest, or people want to do other things. So that's the kind of provocative, I guess, the journalistic news spinning title. But just from your perspective, let's actually break this down into a practical element of what is the actual the problem, which is the overlay is obviously this sensationalist death of the office Christmas party. But can we talk a little bit around why we're hearing this in the press at the moment, do you think?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think there's a few drivers for this, apart from it being Christmas, of course, and it's topical. I think the reality is that there are a number of drivers that are leading to the, as you say, the sensationalist headlines. One is that we've got multi-generational workforces, and different generations have different value sets, different preferences, and with the rise of Gen Z into the workforce, we know that actually their preferences may not align to what we would see as our traditional Christmas party activities. So an evening event, lots of booze, in the pub or out partying till late, and Gen Z, and this is massive generalization, as these themes tend to be, but may not actually appeal to them as much, right? So they may be more focused on their well-being. They may actually want to use their time outside of work for different things. They may actually not drink at all. And so actually from their point of view, a more traditional Christmas party may not actually hit the spot in terms of getting together with their colleagues and socializing at a festive time of year. So I think that's one driver. I think the other driver is the October 2024 changes to the Worker Protection Act, which is sort of placing new emphasis on employers to take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment. The timing of the headlines have coincided with the change in the legal framework, which came in very recently, to sort of raise that profile of actually, we know, if it's an alcohol-fueled evening event, are you doing enough as an employer to take the preventative steps you're now obliged to take to ensure that your employees remain safe in that environment? So I think those to me are the main drivers behind what's happening.
Yeah, and Chris, just from your perspective, anything to kind of build on that? Are you thinking that you'll never be at another office Christmas party again?
So I think I'll definitely be at another office Christmas party. I'm not sure if it will be like some of the Christmas parties that I went to 30 years ago, but that's probably not a bad thing. I think the key to me is really all about asking employees what they want, isn't it? Because it's about understanding, their different needs, their different requirements, what they actually do. But I think to Cathy's point also, it's making sure that we're not creating an environment where inappropriate behaviour happens. So I think it's finding that balance, like most things, isn't it? It's asking people what they want. It's providing different options to make sure that people can enjoy themselves. I think it's absolutely fundamental that we as employers do celebrate the good work that people are doing. And I think it's great, whether it's a Christmas party or other parties, to provide that level of celebration. But I think, unlike many of the parties we've been to over our careers, it doesn't always have to be about alcohol or alternatively, there can be different options to make sure that everyone's comfortable, able to enjoy themselves. And whether that's from a generational perspective, what people like, whether it's from a health perspective, whether it's from a religious perspective, I think, you know, we have diverse workforces, so we should make sure that we're providing, you know, an enjoyable experience for them to actually partake in the celebration that's, you know, everyone should be involved in.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. And I think the key thing, we talk about this a lot at LACE, about this idea of listening, employee listening. We've done podcasts on it, Cathy. We've spoke to external CPOs about this and the value of that. I guess if we then put our HR consulting sort of hats on, if you like, and talk and address directly to HR professionals or to businesses, is there any kind of bits of advice then, given the context of what you've talked about with some of the legislation, given the context that Chris has just talked about around, you know, listening to people and to asking the questions as to, is this the sort of, you know, what do you want? What do you want to get from this? What do we want to get for this? Is there any kind of bits of advice that we could give to HR teams or businesses as to what they can do?
Yeah, understood. And I think, you know, we ran a campaign around the topic of employee experience earlier in the year, right? And that to me, I'm sure our HR viewers are all over the sort of legal changes and what they need to do from that point of view. But maybe if we focus more on the employee experience aspects, because to me, that's the sort of more challenging space, I guess, to really understand your workforce and their preferences. So from an EX point of view, employee experience point of view, absolutely listening to your workforce, as Chris has already said, right? Understanding your workforce segments. How would you segment your workforce? How do you understand employees' preferences depending on what segment of the workforce they're in, whether that's geographical, whether it's age, whether it's role-based, whether it's business units, but understanding preferences and understanding what drives a great experience at work, and trying to do that consistently across the workforce, as well as understanding where there might be differences. And therefore, you know, having that understanding of your workforce and the ability to listen to people's preferences. So having feedback channels, having two-way conversations, relying on the people manager a lot here, right, to actually have the discussions, and maybe taking a view that isn't one size fits all for things like social gatherings or celebrations. Is there a way to devolve decision-making around that down to smaller groups, smaller teams, to have some input from the employees as to what they would actually prefer, and to give more autonomy to the use of a budget, maybe at a local level, to make decisions that will really have the best impact for those teams who then participate. So for me, I think it's understanding those segments, understanding their preferences, and then giving maybe local decision-making to make the call as to what would work best for my team or my department or my location.
Yeah, I really like that, particularly the localizing it, because you will get groups of people with common interests that work within teams that perhaps they're going to look at something and think, well, we don't want to do that. And again, we've focused in on the Christmas party thing, but really, as you just said, Cathy, and as Chris, I want you to kind of give us the last word on before we wrap up today. It's about these sort of social environments, isn't it? Rather than just, let's not zone in just on the Christmas party, death of the Christmas party. It's about those social environments. But Chris, any kind of final thoughts from you before we wrap up on today's live stream?
So I think absolutely to Cathy's point about listening to those different workforce segments, but I think it's then about involving people in the design of those social events. So, you know, at bigger events, let's make sure we're including everyone to come up with what are the activities we want to do, what are the things that would be fun, what are the things that we can do to celebrate. I also think, you know, if I look at our, we break family trees. So it's much smaller group who are managing life together. Effectively, some of those are much more sporty, so you could see them going on a hiking event or a walk or something as a social celebration. Others preferred different activities, are more crafty. Others, you know, so I think it's really involving them in the discussion, listening to them, but it's also, you know, having the ability for them to drive what they want to do and giving them that flexibility. And it's kind of like what we do at work, you know, from hybrid working, from flexible working, you know, we drive the discussion, we listen to what people want, but we also look at the needs of the business as well. So it's really me listening, getting people involved, and actually getting them to do what they do.
Absolutely love it. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. As I said, we kind of touched on the Christmas Christmas side of it, but really this is something that I think can be applied to any kind of social events, and some really interesting ways in which you can look at it. Good points by Chris on and Cathy on the employee listening side of it around. Quite like the idea of those smaller groups as well. But Cathy, thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
And Mr. Horton, thank you very much, as always.
Thank you, Chris Howard. Season's greetings.
Season's greetings, and hopefully for everyone from LACE, we'll be pushing out quite a lot of content over the next few days, as we like to do. But enjoy your festive season from the whole of the LACE team, and we will catch you all on the other side in 2025. Bye-bye.